Thank you very much, everybody. There's lots of people out there in the darkness. If you could shine a few more lights in my eyes so I can't see everybody, that'd be absolutely fantastic. I'm taking it, it's just the green button to advance. Technology works. Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon now. For those who don't know me, I'm Chris Allen Smith. I'm Head of Profession with Herts County Council. I feel like a little bit of a fraud because I came into this project late and I'm picking up all the glory for us, you know, doing a fantastic bit of collaboration. But yeah, you've got to put up with me, I'm afraid, from the client perspective, and then you'll hear from Rory about some of the really interesting work that went on in the background. So this, again, good example of collaboration, sticking with our theme of the morning, all about a project that we've delivered, measuring the spread rate of pre-coated chippings used in hot rolled asphalt. So getting to the technical heart of things, getting to the techie bits. Clearly, we still use quite a lot of hot rolled asphalt in Hertfordshire. I'm not going to start the great debate because that could it could last all day if I get all the asphalt heads in the room debating the merits of various different types of asphalt. But we find it to be a good, durable material used on some of our roads in certain circumstances. We think it's got some real benefits, and I'm hoping that they will come up if I ping that. So yeah, we find, and just our experience, your mileage may vary, we find it's more durable than some of the other materials, so it's longer lasting. We therefore don't have to go back and resurface a road quite as often. It uses less of the high PSV aggregates, so if we're trying to conserve those natural resources, we're not using quite so much of the 65 or the 68 PSV as we might in some other mixes. And it's got a slower, more predictable deterioration, and as an asset manager that's really important for me. If I look at a bit of hot rolled asphalt that's going home, I can probably think I've got a couple of years to get a surface dressing on top of that before that completely lets go on me. Some other mixes, you can look at them 1 week and the next week there's a sharp frost and suddenly it's pothole city. So I like that from a management point of view. But it is more expensive. It also has a higher CO2 footprint. You're laying it a bit thicker, which is why it costs a bit more, and there is a little bit more of a footprint there. But, and you probably can't read the little graphs down the bottom left-hand corner, but what they say is from our experience and from our carbon calculator that we've developed locally, actually the savings in CO2 and cost up front by using some different materials are more than offset by the longevity of hot rolled asphalt. So actually, if we get it right and we lay it right, we get a lot more time out of it, and that means it's actually cheaper in the long term and has a lower life cycle carbon footprint. But the key part of that is getting it right. And obviously, if you don't get it right, you can get it horribly wrong. So rate of spread is absolutely key, and that's really what we're here to talk about today. We need to get the rate of spread of the chippings right when we lay them on the surface. They are key to the durability. I won't go through all the words on the slide, but they're key to the durability of it. Get it right and they're brilliant. They provide the texture and the skid resistance, so absolutely crucial. We're usually using this on busier roads or high-speed roads, so getting texture and skid resistance right is key. And the chippings do that. So you need enough chippings, not too many. You put too many in, you end up with horribly over-chipped, lumps come out, you end up with an uneven surface. The mat doesn't work properly. You put in too few, you haven't got your skid resistance, you haven't got the right structure to the mat. It is really quite an art to getting the chippings in, as anybody who's sort of sat there in the wee small hours of the morning and tried to get it right on site, usually in the rain, will know. And obviously I've covered costs and CO2, but you don't want to get it wrong, you don't want to make a mistake and have to go back and revisit something. You want to make sure you've got that best value for money all round. So getting the pre-coats, the right amount of pre-coats in is crucial to getting that longevity and getting all those benefits that we're banking on. Currently, as we know, you've probably got somebody out there, you might have somebody out there with a metal tray that they'll put in front of the chipper, they lift it up, they weigh it, you're putting a person in harm's way, you've got to have a technician there measuring what you're doing. That's putting them in a very congested paving train. For those of you who know your asphalt paving trains, you've got the paver, you've got the chipper hopefully immediately behind it, you've got the rollers up nice and tight behind the chipper to get the compaction straight away. You're putting another technician into that. That's not ideal. You've also got to pay somebody else to be on site. Every extra person in the gang is an extra bit of cost that we'd like to avoid if we can. And you're generally finding out too late. By the time you've weighed it, measured it, checked it, maybe come back the next day like this chap and done a sand patch test, it's already too late. You've missed the opportunity to correct the rate of spread as you go along. So for all of those reasons, we wanted an automated system. And this is where I pass you over to Rory, and he talks you through all the really clever stuff.
Thank you, Chris. Good afternoon. So we started from first principles, looking at how we could use the characteristics of the construction that was going down to improve the measurement of that construction. And we decided to do that through thermal imaging. So simply differentiating between hot rolled asphalt, which is obviously by its nature hot, and cold pre-coated chippings. We take an image of the construction and we ascertain the percentage of the HRA that's covered in the chippings, and from that you can convert into conventional kilograms per square metre. So the way that we started out, we had to start out in the laboratory. So what you see there is basically a tray of HRA in a lab setting with some pre-coats, set understood kilograms per square metre of pre-coats put on top of the HRA. Because there is a broad consistency across stone shape, density, there's not that many sources of pre-coats in the UK, there is a predictable relationship between the percentage coverage and the kilograms per square metre, so you can ensure that the correlation that you've set up basically will remain consistent. But in order to make sure that correlation is consistent, we found you still have to continuously monitor to make sure that those characteristics are consistent. Yeah. So the first iteration was a handheld system. We basically developed an app which was available on the Android store, and we undertook some site trials, which basically consisted of putting a load of trays down via a technician, taking a lot of photos, and trying to make sure that the numbers matched up. This basically proved to be pretty effective. The science behind this is now pretty well established. There is a consistent relationship between percentage coverage and kilograms per square metre. However, the unfortunate aspect of this was that it still required somebody on site to do the work. And if you're trying to remove people from site, to remove them from potential interaction with site equipment, site incursions through traffic, then that's not really a solution that's going to work. And it also takes somebody away from the gang who are necessarily going to be trying to do other things. So what we decided to do was to try and adapt that technology into a system that was mounted on the chipper so that it could continuously measure as the chipper was moving, but without the need for any human interaction. So that's what we developed. What we did is we took a system which is currently being used to measure thermal segregation during paving. So this system here is typically mounted on the top of a paver, and it measures the temperature of the asphalt as it moves out from behind the screed. And what that will show you is basically when your paver's stopped and you've had a lot of material getting cold under the back of the screed, you'll notice that there are differences in thermal segregation, and that leads to problems with compaction and therefore likely potholes and things like that. So we took the app that we had developed for the handheld system and we plugged it into this and we mounted it on top of a chipper. From that we could get continuous automated readings, and we were able to provide real-time feedback to the chipper drivers. Getting them to listen to it, slightly more difficult, but nonetheless the technology exists. So this is what it actually looks like through the chipper mounted system. The little dots or the little circles that you see there are filter points. because one of the most difficult things we've had to do is to filter out when people move behind the system. Turns out that people tend to be about the same temperature as pre-coated chippings, which is inconsiderate, we found. You have to be able to filter those people out, otherwise they're going to be picked up as chippings, and that means you're not going to have consistency of results. So we take 5 readings per second. Basically, if it's under 50 degrees, we assume that it's going to be a human. And as I said, that allows us to distinguish between people and rollers. One of the other difficulties we had is that the system really only works when the chip is moving. And that's because the chips, when they sit on the HRA, will obviously heat up as a consequence of the HRA beneath them. And if they heat up to the same level as the HRA, then necessarily there won't be a difference, and that means that you won't be able to differentiate and therefore ascertain the percentage coverage. So we basically had to fit a radar system underneath the chipper to monitor when it's actually moving. So that's the way we got around that. The results themselves are hopefully quite intuitive. This was something that the team had to work with quite consistently with the guys on site to ensure that the way that we were presenting the data was usable. It had to be actionable as well. So basically we came up with a pretty straightforward system which were to provide the data through QR codes. So each of the systems has a QR code which can be scanned by anybody on site. The information then is presented to whoever's looking at it in a color coordinated format. So you can see here, I'll just check, the blue is too low, the green is spot on, and I believe the red is over chipping. You get results for the entirety across the mat. There's a little timestamp there to show you when the measurement was actually taken, and that means that hopefully if there's any area that's too low, you can get back and deal with it basically by applying some additional chips if needs be. But the idea really is that you should be adjusting the gates, if needs, fairly continuously to be able to make sure that you've got the target spread rate. So the advantage is no need for a technician, which obviously has some cost benefits, but I think more importantly, potentially health and safety benefits. I think some contractors, our partners in this, Eurovia, have been very good at adopting modern roller technology. Some of the Bomag 154s and 174s, they're much safer than using the old 3-pinners. I can tell you, as having been a technician myself, when you're out on site and you're crouching down to pick up a chipping tray and you've got a 3-pin roller reversing towards you, it's a little bit concerning. But the safest way really to avoid potential hazards around those kind of scenarios is just to remove people from doing the test itself, get anybody to the side of the road if at all possible, or if you can, automate it. So that's what this system's managed to do for measuring the rate of spread. So what we decided to do as a project team is to try and take this a little bit further and to see whether we can help apply this beyond Hertfordshire into other areas of the country which are using hot rolled asphalt construction. And so what we have been doing, we are working this year, is we plan to feed the data from the automated measurement system directly back into the chipper. It's a lot easier with some of the newer chippers because I think some of the chippers you see on the network, they're basically agricultural products. There's not a lot of technology in there, and it makes it pretty difficult to electronically, let's say, change the gates. So we think that we should be able to take this data, feed it straight back in, automatically change the spread rate, and that means that you really shouldn't have any circumstances in which you're not getting the absolute target of your spread rate. It's probably going to take most of 2024. It's a little bit complicated, but we are working with both Tex and Pavemac. But it should hopefully produce some pretty good results. And hopefully we'll be back to update everybody on how that does help to improve quality, safety, asset management in due course. Thank you very much.
Thank you guys very much for that. It's very impressive to hear what you're doing with the system, that you've validated. It's got that sort of rigorous scientific bit behind that, and also that automation and health and safety I thought was really good. And if that is widened out beyond Hertfordshire, I think we'd all welcome that. Has anybody got a question they want to ask? Martin. Get a mic to Martin, please. Oh, I didn't see someone else.
Is there? All right, okay.
Okay, yeah.
Kevin Gilbert, Derbyshire County Council. The range got there for the spread rates. Have you correlated it with texture depth, with volumetrics?
Yes, and there is a degree of correlation, but the problem is that spread rate doesn't always directly correlate, so it'll depend sometimes on the thickness of the material, how well it's been rolled, so there isn't like a consistently provable correlation, but yes, to an extent. Basically, we did it and we came up with an R-squared value of I think about 0.81, but we haven't done as much work as we could do on it. It's something I'm definitely interested to do, but I don't know whether it'll be 100% possible to do that.
Actually, the other question I was going to have was about whether you can link it to the actual chippers, but it looks like you're doing that anyway.
We're certainly going to try, yeah.
What about the width of the mat? I see that, does it actually scan the full width of the mat, and what's the maximum width it can do?
Yeah, so it's a wide angle camera, so it can scan pretty wide. If anything, we actually struggle cutting off the sides to make sure we don't get any extraneous data from existing carriageway.
Thank you.